Sleeping with 1,000 men is the only way to leave Yangshui Village forever. Today marks my 58th day away from the village. If I don't return the day after tomorrow, I'll instantly transform into an old hag. Inside the airplane lavatory, I kissed a man I'd just met, mentally counting him as number 830. My sister, unable to find men after leaving the village, was sacrificed to the Yangshui deity, forever imprisoned beneath the waters. She was the shame of Yangshui Village, but ever since childhood, I possessed a rare talent. Any man I set my sights on, none could escape my grasp. Yet I didn't know that the more men I slept with, the more tragic my fate would become. Upon reaching the village gate, Hannah, my childhood friend, and I met to compare our numbers. I had dozens more than her. I casually comforted her, but inwardly I blossomed with triumph. No one could ever surpass me. The most captivating woman in Yangshui Village could only ever be me. The most crucial thing was that they had to like us. Each time we left the village, the chief would give us a white jade pendant. If the man before us developed feelings, the jade would turn red. If we slept with a man who didn't like us, our beauty would age by 5 years the very next day. After reporting our progress to the chief, Hannah and I returned home. My father met us at the gate from afar, his eyes full of praise, his face beaming with pride. It was a stark contrast to how he treated my elder sister years ago, when he beat her nearly to death just for arriving at the village gate. Our village, though hidden deep in the dense forest, consisted entirely of luxurious villas. The landscape within the village rivaled royal gardens. Yangshui Village opened its gates only once a year. Entering required a payment of 500 million, and only 100 people were accepted annually. Regardless of whether they were obese, ugly, stunted, or critically ill, upon leaving the village, they would become eternally young, robust, women beautiful, and men handsome, an effect even the world's most advanced aesthetic centers couldn't achieve. Each person had only one chance to enter Yangshui Village in their lifetime. Those who entered would forget the way back, never to be involved with the village again. The sole exception was my sister. In those days, she clung to her chastity for a man who repeatedly brought his family into the village. But blinded by greed, he exploited my sister for money, smuggling people into the village illegally to seek the art of eternal life. The third time he sneaked in, the chief caught him, flaying him alive and extracting his tendons in front of the entire village. My sister was also sacrificed. From then on, no one dared to challenge the village's rules. After that incident, the entire village relocated. Strangely, the old site bore no trace of our past existence. The vast Yangshui Lake had also vanished. This was utterly unimaginable, something I couldn't comprehend. Once, when I cautiously asked my father, he cursed me terribly, making me fast for 3 days and nights without food or water. From then on, I dared not be curious. I had only one goal: sleep with 1,000 men, amass huge wealth, and leave the village. The opulent world outside was my true vast haven. More importantly, only on that day, according to the village rules, would they tell me where my mother was. I miss you so much, Mother. I must find you. In the years to come, we, mother and daughter, will never be separated again. On the third day, I returned to the village, just in time for its annual opening day. At dawn, I was dispatched to the village entrance to welcome our distinguished guests. Watching each person step off their helicopters, it was as if banknotes were flying into the village. One man I recognized was a real-world magnate, a famous business tycoon, rumored to possess trillions in assets but suffering from a terminal illness with not long to live. Now, having come to Yangshui Village, it seemed his fate hadn't run its course yet. This trip was surely going to fulfill his desires. My task was simply to escort them to the guest houses by Yangshui Lake, then my duty would be done. However, the tycoon seemed particularly interested in me, constantly pointing in my direction. The chief, seeing this, wasn't surprised and even gestured for me to serve this god well. I absolutely did not want to. Sleeping with men within the village didn't count towards my 1,000-man tally. Moreover, this old man was both aged and unsightly. I had never attended to such a type before. But with the chief's steady gaze upon me, I had no choice but to comply. Pulling the tycoon's hand, I led him into a private guest house. The moment we entered, he pushed me onto the bed, eagerly tearing at my clothes. I saw the chief close the door with a satisfied look before leaving. Suddenly, the man sighed in relief, rolling off me, his lustful gaze completely vanishing. It turned out everything that had just transpired was a pretense, A warning bell rang in my head. "Dahlia," he said, "I know you." I looked at his face, completely unimpressed. "My son uses your picture as his phone wallpaper. He's traveled the world searching for you. I never imagined you'd be from Yangshui Village." "I've slept with so many men. How would I know which one of his sons he's talking about?" "Here's my number. Regarding your mother, I want to talk to you somewhere else, outside Yangshui Village." The man slipped a piece of paper into my hand, then pulled back the curtain and left the room. Why so fast? Old age, weak body, a beautiful girl in bed, but the spirit is willing, the flesh is weak. Haha, after today, I guarantee you'll be as fierce as a hungry wolf. The chief's voice echoed from behind the closed door, but my heart churned with a storm of emotions. My mother left Yangshui Village 10 years ago. After giving birth to my sister and me, she abandoned the village. She left permanently after sleeping with 1,000 men. But how did this man know my mother? Did he know her personally? Or was my mother the one who provided him with information about Yangshui Village? My thoughts raced wildly, but I still couldn't comprehend it. Early the next morning, 100 unconscious guests were pulled, naked, one by one, from Yangshui Lake and immediately airlifted out of the village. "Dahlia, please tell me about the outside world," asked Bonnie, my 9-year-old neighbor. According to village rules, she had to wait until she was 18 to leave. My mouth opened and closed, unsure where to begin. My first man was a real estate agent. Our meeting was like a fairy tale. He carried me through a snowy night to the hospital when I dislocated my ankle. After our first night, the red stain on the bed made him overjoyed. But then, for his career, for promotion, he successively pushed me into the beds of other men. Which was fine. It was exactly what I needed. He thought I was an orphaned, helpless girl he could easily trample upon and command like an object. I didn't bother exposing him. It saved me the trouble of finding men myself, so it wasn't there to be happy about. The most dramatic time, I slept with 15 men in one night, breaking a record, challenging limits. Fortunately, those men all desired me. The white jade on my neck glowed pink, indicating they had some affection for me. After all, my face, even in the entertainment industry, would be considered top tier. Later, I gradually became numb, devoid of any genuine emotion, living like a game, moving in and out of hotel beds like a machine. What is love? I didn't believe such a thing existed. My sister was a living example before my eyes. After 6 months of rest, I embarked on another 2-month love hunt. Those who left Yangshui Village would experience extreme discomfort. This feeling would vanish after a few days. Yangshui Village was good, but it tolerated no women who refused to go out and find men. Every girl born in the village carried this innate mission. No one could escape such a fate. I slept for 3 days and 3 nights straight in a hotel, and only when my body felt significantly lighter did I feel truly alive again. Dialing the tycoon's number, my heart pounded with anxiety and longing, my mind filled with countless illusions. I wanted to see my mother, even just once. At our meeting point, the man before me was both strange and familiar. His youthful body and face, only his cloudy eyes allowed me to recognize him. Thanks to the blessings of Yangshui Village, I have a new life. Now I am my son's brother. I didn't come here to reminisce. I want to know where my mother is. Hearing this, the man was surprised, then immediately understood. 12 years ago, I met your mother. She was as beautiful as you. You two are very alike. Like you and my son, she disappeared after we slept together. I searched for her for 2 years. Emotion surged through me. He had indeed met my mother. He kept emphasizing his son, but I genuinely didn't care who he was. We had a beautiful time together. She told me the secrets of Yangshui Village and about her daughter, Dahlia. I didn't care about her past. I just wanted to be with her forever. And then, I asked impatiently, we set a date to meet again. That last time she returned, she said it would be the final time before she left the village forever, but I never saw her again. The man's face clouded with sadness. It's been 12 years, and I haven't seen your mother anywhere. The man looked at me intently, the waves of anger in my heart understood only by me. Dahlia, you're a smart girl. You understand what I'm trying to say, don't you? Perhaps you're being too suspicious. Maybe my mother just didn't want to meet you and deliberately stood you up. My voice trembled, lacking conviction. The story about sleeping with 1,000 men to leave Yangshui Village forever is just a lie. No woman has ever truly escaped that place. What do you understand? How can you be so certain? The bond between your mother and me, she wasn't the type to leave without a word. The man pulled out a ring, and I nearly collapsed. Every girl in Yangshui Village received this ring when they turned 18. We would wear it until death, never taking it off. It was the village's coming-of-age gift to every maiden. If this man wasn't important, why would my mother give him her ring? Dahlia, don't go back, I can help you. You couldn't even help yourself, didn't you also have to rely on Yangshui Village? What right do you have to offer me help now? Perhaps I was angry out of helplessness. I didn't understand why I was so furious. Until now, I had never doubted this. Certainly, no woman in Yangshui Village would dare to think such a thing. How could sleeping with 1,000 men to leave the village forever be a lie? Seraphina, the mistress of Ghost Mountain, once sought me out. She said she could help you if you wished. The tycoon recounted how he'd faced many troubles, all resolved with Seraphina's aid. His long-lost daughter, trapped as a ghost courtesan for years, was rescued thanks to her. Furthermore, Seraphina, after meeting him and his son only once, confirmed their connection to women from Yangshui Village, stating she had sought this village for years and now only needed a guide. Businessmen were often superstitious, and connections to the underworld weren't uncommon, but the name Seraphina sent a shockwave through me, leaving me stunned. I had once seen this name in my mother's old coat pocket, a piece of paper scrawled with Seraphina SOS. The frantic handwriting was unmistakable, clearly written in panic. I loved that coat and often secretly wore it when my mother wasn't home. Now, looking back, could my mother have intentionally left it for me? Perhaps she knew this would happen. Where is she? I can take you to meet her right now. As the car neared its destination, I suddenly remembered who the tycoon's son was. I had once saved a dog, and he was its owner. After a hazy day and night, we ended up in bed. Damn it, I only wanted the physical, but he wanted romance. How utterly tiresome. Looking at the back of his neck as he drove, by the 101st glance, he caught my eye in the rearview mirror. I snapped. It was just one night, wasn't it? Is all this necessary? I've slept with more men than that. Just be clear. Stop looking at me like you're glued to me. Got it, the man said with a dejected sigh. His benevolent father beside him looked on, amused by the drama. The car stopped in front of a geomancy shop. From afar, I saw a young woman with a ponytail approaching us. From the first glance, I disliked her. As she drew closer, catching an inexplicable scent from her, my aversion intensified tenfold. Seraphina said nothing, simply staring at me silently, sending shivers down my spine. Some things pretend to be human for so long they truly believe they are. What do you mean by that? Dahlia, a beautiful ripe fruit. Your father gave you a truly beautiful name. Are you just some fortune teller who likes to pretend to be a god or a ghost? I was utterly exasperated. I hated this vague way of speaking. Seraphina told me to take her back to the village, or I would die. But bringing a stranger back without reason meant I would be punished according to village rules. Yet, under her sharp, cold gaze, I naturally lost all my defiance. She took a talisman from a drawer, pressed it to her chest, and immediately vanished before our eyes. After she turned invisible, only I could see her. Others couldn't detect her. What now? Once we're in the village, what do you plan to do? Save you. Someone entrusted this task to me. I merely wish to complete it. Seraphina cast a meaningful glance at the tycoon. I stood before the village gate once more, having returned earlier than expected, my heart heavy with anxiety. Amidst my chaotic thoughts, I saw my father storming towards me, brandishing a whip, and without a word, he lashed me repeatedly across the face. Useless failure, what are you doing back so early? You cheap wretch, get out of my sight. The father before me felt alien. He had treated my sister the same way once. So this was his true face. Seraphina, still invisible, slashed my father across the neck, and he immediately collapsed. Then she produced a gourd, a golden light flashed, and my father was sucked inside. Only at this moment did I gain another layer of understanding about her strangeness. At her command, I headed straight for Yangshui Lake. This was also my first time coming here on a normal day, not on the day guests arrived. Steam billowed, making it look like a celestial paradise from afar. Strangely, a foul stench hung in the air. Why did this place reek so terribly? Every previous visit, it had smelled fragrant. When Seraphina arrived, she was no longer invisible. Immediately, the lake surface seethed and bubbled, and the condensing steam made me break out in a sweat. She said there were many people under the water, but I only cared if my mother was among them. We'll only know after I break the formation beneath the lake and drain the water. Drain the water. Those 3 words made me feel like my doomsday had arrived. If the chief found out, I would die a terrible death. Suddenly recalling the horrifying scene of flaying and tendon extraction from years ago, I trembled uncontrollably, my limbs feeling drained of strength. Having lived so long in a village full of harsh rules, I had never once considered defying them. The young woman noticed my unease, patted my back reassuringly, and in a hidden corner where no one could see, she stuck a talisman to my back. Why do we have to sleep with 1,000 men for them to let us leave the village? The village rule had always been such, implying that only after 1,000 men would the Yangshui deity forgive women who wished to permanently betray and leave the village. But what true god fears the betrayal of mortals? I mused, lost in thought. I watched Seraphina sitting by the lake, her hands forming seals, sometimes burning talismans, other times pulling out her gourd. So many theatrics, but aside from the lake water churning more violently, nothing particularly special happened. And she herself was so exhausted she could barely breathe. Honestly, Yangshui Village had centuries of history, and no one had ever dared to question its rules. My heart began to waver, unsure of what consequences my current actions would ultimately bring. Those who dared to doubt are already at the bottom of the water. To know the truth means your doomsday has come. Once you're dead, you can't reveal any more secrets. Seraphina saw through everything, her face full of cynicism. My lips moved, but no words came out, for indeed, no one had ever seen anyone who had left the village again. These women, when they left, all had families, children. They left the village, they didn't die. So why did no one ever contact their families again? Perhaps they truly were dead. My mother's gently smiling face appeared in my mind, and my heart clenched with a sharp pain. Seraphina cut her fingertip, mixed the blood with a yellow talisman and burned it in her palm, finally transforming it into a clay pellet. She gestured for me to swallow it, then to go find the chief and tell him I had slept with 1,000 men. But the chief would verify its truth. No one could deceive him. I fearfully shook my head, rejecting the proposal. With me here, what's there to fear? Seraphina irritably pinched my mouth open, stuffing the clay pellet inside. The moment it entered my mouth, it dissolved, sweet and refreshing. It's strange, she said. Keep this white jade for me. If the chief asks, just say you lost it. My neck felt empty. She had already thrown the jade into her gourd. To be honest, I was incredibly curious about her gourd. It was blazing noon, but the further we walked, the darker the sky grew. Half an hour after reaching the chief's gate, the moon was already high. The path was only a few steps, yet it felt as if we had run 10 kilometers through the forest. My scalp throbbed, and a lock of hair in Seraphina's hand caught fire. We stood in the chief's courtyard. I wondered if my hair had some special property. She chuckled, saying it was all the same, but pulling her own hair hurt more. I felt this didn't quite fit the image of a benevolent savior she was building in my mind. The chief suddenly appeared, asking why I had returned so early. I didn't know if it was an illusion, but I felt he was different today, his eyes vacant, his voice somehow off. I said I had slept with 1,000 men. The chief listened, then circled me twice, sniffing the air around me. Dahlia, why do you have such a strange scent about you? Perhaps it's because you've been exposed to too many people outside, and your body odor has changed. I glanced at the invisible Seraphina, feeling a little unnerved. The chief declared us dismissed, saying he was tired today and told me to return tomorrow. But his eyes were full of vigilance. Seraphina formed a hand seal, a red light flashed. The chief collapsed into a pool of blood. How could you just kill him like that? I was truly stunned. This woman didn't follow any script. Seraphina gestured for me to calm down. I looked closely, and to my shock, the thing lying in the pool of blood was clearly a giant dog, at least twice the size of a pig. Seraphina decisively flayed the golden dog with a knife, her hands not stained by a single drop of blood. As I pondered the meaning of this action, a car horn sounded outside, and a colossal man walked in. "Granny, it's done. Even cannon fire won't wake anyone in the village now," he said in a goofy voice. Seraphina said he was a child from her ghost mountain. I glanced at him, comparing our sizes. I only reached his armpit. "You call this a child?" This guy looked even more muscular than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Seraphina gave a sidelong glance. Bigfoot pulled out a crystal ball. She took the clothes the dog had just worn and burned them. The smoke was immediately sucked into the orb. Inside, a dummy figure pointed in one direction. Seraphina pulled the dog's flayed skin into the car, following the direction the dummy indicated. Like this, we'll find the chief? I secretly doubted. Leaving the village, the sky was ablaze as if it were scorching midday. Looking back, the entire village was engulfed in a thick black mist. Nothing could be seen clearly. After tonight, all truths will be revealed. Seraphina narrowed her eyes, her face full of mystery. The car entered the city, stopping in front of a luxurious nightclub. This place was all too familiar to me, a notorious den of spending for the underworld. I had once worked as a hostess here to complete my quota of 1,000 men. In those days, I was a top star, earning up to 500 million in a single night. The dummy and the crystal ball continued to point the way. We followed its direction. Luckily, everyone here knew me, assuming I was making a comeback, so they let us pass freely. Unexpectedly, outside a VIP room, I ran into Hannah, my childhood friend. Seeing me, she joyfully recounted her hunting escapades from recent times. Looking at Bigfoot and Seraphina beside me, I suddenly felt ashamed. Before, sleeping with men was nothing, but now it felt humiliating. Hannah also mentioned meeting Vivian, a girl who left the village years ago and now ran a training center for women, specializing in how to cling to wealthy men. You're sure you're not mistaken? Seraphina and I exchanged glances. My heart was seized with extreme panic. If the story about sleeping with 1,000 men to leave the village was a lie, there was a high chance I would die a terrible death. Hannah nodded decisively, saying she had a dinner date with Vivian tonight. I asked for the address and took my leave. Unexpectedly, Hannah misunderstood my intentions, casting a meaningful glance at Bigfoot. Seraphina tore the golden dog skin into 3 pieces. Each of us draped one piece over ourselves, slowly proceeding towards the basement of the club. She said it could temporarily mask our scent, preventing us from alerting any opponents. The further we descended, the more intense the distinctive aura of Yangshui Village became. Upon reaching the lowest level, we still found nothing. I looked at Seraphina, disappointed, our efforts seemingly in vain. Bigfoot calmly took out a large hammer, affixed a yellow talisman to it, and fiercely smashed it into the empty space before us. I had no idea what he was hitting. A few minutes later, with an earth-shattering explosion, the view before us suddenly opened up to reveal a space over 200 square meters, adorned with all kinds of human skins. It stinks so much. Why is it so foul? Bigfoot covered his nose and recoiled. This smell was identical to the stench from Yangshui Lake in the village. Seraphina casually crunched on a handful of melon seeds, like a sovereign inspecting his mountain domain, as she surveyed the human skins on the walls. She told me to wait. The chief was about to appear. Some of these skins still had fresh blood, others were dry and wrinkled, but all were intact. The horrifying scene of the chief flaying and extracting tendons from a living person in broad daylight replayed in my mind. I admit I'm a coward. I wanted to ask what exactly the chief was. How could anyone call him a human? Seraphina's smile was full of sarcasm. She said the chief was not a ghost, not a demon, and now couldn't even be called a god. As she spoke, her expression darkened. In short, not human. In my heart, I already had the answer. She said, humans themselves worship deities, then themselves destroy them. Gods, to save themselves, go about killing everywhere. In the end, is the fault with the gods or with humans? Both are to blame. Humans should not kill the deity they once worshipped, and the deity should not kill the humans they once protected. I spoke my thoughts in a daze. Seraphina scratched her ear and head, her eyes weary. This is an unsolvable problem. To this moment, I still can't imagine what the ultimate fate of Yangshui Village will be. I huddled in a corner, watching the clock hands tick by, my consciousness slowly scattering. My mother, in a tattered white dress thin as paper, stood by Yangshui Lake, weeping despairingly. The chief, with a menacing face, slowly forced her towards the lake. Mother said she could give up everything, never leave the village her entire life, just begging the chief not to sacrifice her to the Yangshui deity. But the chief was cold. It's too late. Everything is fated. Your mother, you 2 sisters, all are fated. No woman of Yangshui Village can escape this destiny. He also said, only the dead can keep secrets. Don't blame me, these are the village rules. My mother knelt, continuously kowtowing, but the chief remained expressionless, looking down indifferently. Crash! He pushed my mother into Yangshui Lake. The lake water churned, and in a flash, mother transformed into a pool of blood and vanished. Women of Yangshui Village don't even dream of leaving. No one shall betray the Yangshui deity? The chief cackled maniacally. In the rising steam from the lake, I vaguely saw countless people. My mother, my grandmother, my sister, my great-aunts, and countless familiar faces. The women who had left the village after sleeping with 1,000 men. No one was an exception. All stood in the blood-soaked lake, in agonizing despair. It turned out everything was a lie. Mother, I truly will never see you again, I cried with extreme agony. No matter how much I screamed, They didn't turn back, sinking together to the bottom of the water. The fog dissipated, and I stood amidst a bustling street. By the roadside, Hannah and Vivian were happily drinking beer and eating grilled skewers. Seeing me approach, both joyfully waved hello. Vivian was the sister I loved most in the village. When I was little, she would often braid my hair beautifully. Since she left the village, I had never seen her again, and I always missed her terribly. But why was she able to leave the village so peacefully? Vivian drained 2 glasses of wine, some spilling onto the table. She dipped her finger in water and wrote 2 words, "Run away," on the corner of the table. Hannah and I exchanged bewildered glances. Just as Hannah was about to speak, Vivian shushed her, gesturing for silence. She discarded her white jade and quickly wrote more on the table. "Go to a temple with incense, don't appear for 10 years. Vivian looked terrified but also afraid of being discovered, her finger quickly adding more details. Compared to Hannah's stunned expression, I remained remarkably calm. 2 burly men carrying iron rods ran towards us from afar, their faces vicious, radiating an overwhelming murderous aura. "Run!" Vivian pushed us away. I pulled Hannah, running straight ahead, tears blurring my vision. Vivian's desperate cry from behind us pierced my heart. Tripping, we both tumbled to the ground. When we stood up, we suddenly found ourselves back in the club's lowest basement. Seraphina flicked a melon seed, her arms crossed, staring intently at us. "Where are we? Why are we here? Should we go save Vivian?" Hannah stammered, panicking. Seraphina asked if I understood now. Could it be that everything I had just witnessed was intentionally shown to me by her? The girl before me suddenly became terrifying in my eyes. She sighed and said, "Our mountain spirit tribe naturally possesses soul-traveling abilities. We were just too deluded for too long and forgot our true nature." The distinctive scent of Yangshui Village in the air grew increasingly pungent. Hannah and I looked at each other, worried. Seraphina and Bigfoot also immediately became alert. Boom! A loud sound echoed, and a door suddenly appeared in the eastern wall. A man in his 20s stepped in, scolding us for our audacity. His appearance was different, his age unlike, but his voice was unmistakably the chief's. Glancing at the human skins covering the walls, I realized the person before me was indeed the chief, wearing someone else's skin. "Long time no see, Lord Kanangu, our great mountain deity of Kanglan." Seraphina bowed in an ancient manner. "Ha, who do we have here? It's the wicked immortal from Ghost Mountain, Seraphina. Since you know my identity, don't meddle in affairs that don't concern you, or don't blame me for being impolite." As he spoke, the chief tore off his human skin, revealing his original form. Seraphina said, "Lord Kanangu, humanity has long ceased to worship you. Are you certain you can still defeat this humble girl now?" The chief replied that whether he could or not, he would not allow her to insult him. The chief had always been calm and composed, like an ancient sage. This was the first time I'd seen him so furious. The two clashed in the open space. At the same time, Vivian, her face bruised and battered, was escorted in. Seeing Hannah and me, her face displayed a despair ashen as dying embers. "Granny, can I lend a hand?" Bigfoot asked impatiently, chewing his gum faster and faster. "No need. If I lose this battle, there's no point in doing anything else. It would be too humiliating." Although I didn't understand why Bigfoot called the youthful Seraphina Granny, she was indeed incredibly formidable. The chief was quickly defeated, his malicious eyes darting towards Hannah and me. A fierce gale immediately rose in the basement, black smoke spreading everywhere. Seraphina swiftly stood in front of us, shielding us. When the black smoke dispersed, all the human skins had vanished, and neither the chief nor Vivian were anywhere to be seen. Seraphina, holding the chief's blood-stained ritual artifact, led the way, carefully collecting it into a container. She said, "You can run from the monk, but you can't run from the temple. We must return to the village." When we returned to the village, the black mist had completely dissipated. The scenery was the same, yet for some reason, I felt the village was far more desolate. The Yangshui Lake water was murky, emitting such a foul stench that I nearly vomited. Seraphina took out a stack of yellow talismans, dipped them in the chief's blood, and threw them into the lake. In a flash, the entire lake surface erupted in flames. The water boiled furiously, evaporating, and steam billowed, looking exactly like a steamer pot just opened. Before long, the lake water dried up, revealing piles of white bones stacked high like mountains at the bottom. Everyone stood rooted to the spot. The women, my mother, my sister, my paternal grandmother, my maternal grandmother, along with other women from the village, appeared at the bottom of the lake, but they were all just ethereal ghosts. Seraphina formed hand seals, sitting within a radiant golden formation, chanting an incantation for the departed. The gourd at her waist floated in midair, and all the spirits lined up, entering the gourd one by one. "Mother, sister!" I cried out, but they only turned to look at me once before resolutely departing. Bigfoot, his face filled with sorrow, told me not to cry, saying Seraphina was delivering them to a peaceful rebirth. The malice and resentment here were too heavy. It was clear these wronged souls were not at peace. The most important thing was to calmly send them off to reincarnation. This was a rare opportunity, perhaps once in 1,000 years, with so many spirits accumulated over centuries. All the women of Yangshui Village who were said to have left were all here. 2 hours later, a weary Seraphina retrieved her gourd. She said the most important task was done. Now it was time to resolve the karmic retribution with our mountain and forest sprites. With heavy steps, she walked towards the village ancestral hall. We followed. All the truth was about to be revealed, and an indescribable emotion surged in my heart. All the villagers lay sprawled across the open ground in front of the ancestral hall. Hannah was so terrified she froze, screaming hysterically. Bigfoot covered his ears, which were ringing from the shouts, calmly explaining that they weren't dead, merely temporarily asleep. He took out a yellow paper talisman, burned it to ash, and scattered it into the air. The people lying on the ground gradually awoke, including my great-father. "What the hell is going on here? Where's the chief?" "Dahlia, why are you people back?" The crowd buzzed with questions, while Seraphina calmly peeled melon seeds, appearing completely in control of the situation. "Listen carefully, everyone." The crowd fell silent, their eyes fixed on her. "None of you are human." I was dumbfounded. How could she be so blunt? Shouldn't she have been a little more subtle? The crowd erupted, cursing Seraphina in unison. "You're the one who's not human." Bigfoot stood beside her, nodding in agreement, muttering, "It's true, Granny isn't human." I pulled Hannah, slowly retreating into a corner, trying to make myself small. Seraphina gave a subtle glance, and Bigfoot immediately pulled out a large clump of hair, preparing to set it on fire. Suddenly remembering something, he walked over to Hannah and me, yanking a small lock of hair from each of us. "Ow, ow!" Hannah and I winced in pain, looking at each other, bewildered and confused. When the clump of hair finished burning, the chief suddenly fell from the sky, hitting the ground hard, groaning in pain. Bigfoot grinned innocently, secretly boasting to us that he had stealthily plucked everyone's hair while they slept, a small bunch from each, undetected, then asked if I thought he was clever. I lowered my head, ignoring him. He then said Seraphina had taught him to use the enemy's spear against the enemy's shield to break the chief's formation. I looked at Seraphina's clever eyes in the distance, certain that all of Bigfoot's intelligence had transferred to her. The chief ignored all questions, feigning death and lying motionless on the ground, looking utterly panicked. Seraphina kicked him once, but he didn't utter a sound. She recounted how, long ago, there was Mount Kanglan, where people worshipped the mountain deity, offering incense and earthly smoke for the deity to gain divine power. In return, the mountain deity wholeheartedly protected the villagers, bestowing upon them herbs, wild animals, and mineral resources. Later, when humans were prosperous, they no longer needed the mountain deity, and no one offered incense or worship anymore. Upon hearing this, the chief, lying on the ground, suddenly put on an aggrieved act, crying mournfully as if he had found a kindred spirit. Sniffling, he stood up, saying he wished to tell his own story. Seraphina waved him on, then sat on the steps, continuing to peel melon seeds with the professional air of a gossip enthusiast. The chief leisurely recounted his tale, sinking into his memories. To survive, the mountain deity gathered its people and built Yangshui Lake, granting humans eternal youth and robust bodies. All lived human lives in luxurious villas, driving fancy cars. Those influential figures outside now had to beg the chief for help. "Isn't such a life good?" The chief challenged Seraphina. "Yes, isn't such a life good?" The villagers and I all turned our eyes towards her. "A life that must be built upon the bones of tens of thousands of people can never be good." Seraphina took out the white jade block she had taken from me and smashed it to pieces on the ground. Red sparks, like fireflies, scattered everywhere, and the air was filled with the scent of humans. I immediately recognized it as the scent of the men I had slept with. Seraphina asked if I had ever wondered why the village rule was so bizarre, forcing every woman to sleep with 1,000 men. I remained silent. Seraphina said, When we sleep with 1,000 men and sink to the bottom of the lake, the life, beauty, health, and even luck of those 1,000 men will follow us, sacrificed beneath the waters. I looked around at the serene faces of the villagers, my heart sinking into an abyss. Indeed, they were all incredibly calm. Every man in the village knew this secret, yet they still let their mothers, wives, and even daughters go out to find men. For illusory wealth and glory, they had abandoned morality and familial affection. That was the most terrifying thing. There was never any Yangshui deity, it was all orchestrated by the chief. The mountain deity of old had now become a demon, Seraphina said, her eyes burning with hatred. The chief begged Seraphina to spare him, saying he would give up everything and hoping she would pretend they had never met. But though his words sounded submissive, his face showed no remorse whatsoever. Seraphina coldly stroked the gourd at her hip. "If I spare you, then who will spare the wronged souls in Yangshui Lake? Behind every one of those women, there are 1,000 lives. You wove a beautiful dream for these pitiful women, sending them out to sleep with handsome young men, marking those men. In the end, thousands of miles away, these men would all die an unnatural death, sacrificed along with the women to Yangshui Lake. No one suspected you. Weren't their lives also lives? To be honest, I'm acting on orders from higher-ups this time. So many people dying unnatural deaths, their souls vanishing without a trace. This matter is too big, we cannot conceal it." Seraphina paced back and forth, her face troubled. In that basement, there were so many human skins. You wore all sorts of skins, spent money like water in the outside world, indulging in every luxury life had to offer. Now your luck has run out. The chief completely tore off his mask, no longer retaining any of his former benevolence. He said he was a god, that those people died for a god, and after death they could create more wealth for him, they should feel honored. Why should a god pay for their deaths? Was it right? What right did insignificant humans have? Seraphina called it sophistry, twisting logic. The chief, suppressing his madness, said, "Seraphina's theory of good begetting good and evil begetting evil is outdated. Like me, acting only for oneself is following the natural order." He said that humanity was insignificant before the prosperity of deities. Seraphina was too deluded, times had changed. The chief laughed heartily, Hannah cowering in fear behind me. Seraphina, looking utterly disappointed, said, "The chief is beyond salvation." My father led the villagers, surrounding Seraphina and Big Foot. They shouted for the chief to flee. What hypocrisy! Why have I never seen my father so loyal before? A bunch of petty sprites and demons. I haven't even figured out how to deal with you all, and you dare provoke me? You're just Khan and Goo's pawns. He's been out in the world, using money to commit all sorts of wicked deeds, and now his time is up," Seraphina said contemptuously. Bigfoot swung his powerful arm, knocking one down with a single punch. Seraphina applauded beside him, saying, "Well done." Things took a bizarre turn when my father transformed into a deer. Then the other villagers successively revealed their true forms: wild boars, mountain wolves, magpies. It turned out we truly were a group of sprites. We were indeed not human. The chief's face was ashen as dying embers, his eyes showing desperate determination as he lunged to fight Seraphina to the death. But he was no match. After just a few moves, the young woman beat him into a putrid, stinking pile of flesh. "Those who commit all manner of evil, their corpses and souls are equally rotten," Seraphina murmured, then collected him into her gourd, saying she would take him back to Ghost Mountain to be refined into fertilizer. Such souls did not deserve reincarnation. My father and the other villagers were also taken. I don't know the specifics of how they were dealt with, but it certainly wouldn't be a good end. For hundreds of years, they had followed the chief, donning human skins to commit all sorts of wicked deeds, but now their karma had finally caught up with them. Only us girls remained in the courtyard, the young ones under 18, and those over 18 like Hannah and me, who had left the village to hunt men for years. Everyone's eyes were filled with the scars of past trauma. I was incredibly uneasy, unsure how Seraphina would deal with us. But I thought we weren't at fault, we were also victims. Surely, we wouldn't be condemned to eternal damnation. She said Yangshui Village would no longer exist in this world. She told me to lead the others away from here, to find a place unknown to anyone to start a new life. Just one condition: absolutely no more evil deeds. This seemed to be a decision she had carefully considered. She collected all the white jade pendants from our group of man-hunting girls. In front of everyone, she burned a stack of talismans, then smashed the white jade within the pile of ashes. The shattered pieces of jade emitted countless bright red sparks, scattering across the air. Only then did I understand why we always felt uncomfortable when we left the village. The white jade was given by the chief for 2 reasons. 1, to track how many men we had slept with. The white jade absorbed the scent of those men. 2, it was enchanted by the chief to prevent us from trying to escape on our own. If we stayed away from the village for too long, our appearance would rapidly age. The lies never ended. The chief had uttered so many falsehoods, but there was no need to pursue them now. Seraphina told us to forget our past of manhunting. Because we had not directly shed human blood, she offered us a chance at life. But she warned us not to forget that we were not human and not to dream of entangling ourselves with humanity. If such a thing ever happened, the human skin we wore would automatically vanish, revealing our true forms. She hoped we would engrave her words into our hearts. After Seraphina and Bigfoot left, every brick and tile of Yangshui Village crumbled away with the wind. We fell from the trees to the ground. It turned out that all along, we were merely parasitic creatures living on trees. What we called leaving the village was in fact just moving from one tree to another. Those ancient trees had witnessed all the crimes of Yangshui Village. No wonder Seraphina had me guide her into the village. In such a dense, primordial forest, she would have found it difficult to locate the village herself. The chief had woven a beautiful world for himself and built a magnificent kingdom for us. It was just that we women never felt truly happy. "Dahlia, where are you all?" Vivian's voice echoed from afar. The childish voice of young Vivian loudly replied. Vivian came running, eagerly. My sisters and I looked at each other, choked with emotion after the great catastrophe, unable to speak. I wondered why the chief had spared only Vivian. Vivian painfully explained that she was merely a pawn the chief had placed outside. Someone needed to contact those 100 benefactors each year on the opening day. A flash of insight hit me. So Vivian had known about the affair between my mother and the tycoon all along. That man hadn't just stumbled upon me by chance. Vivian admitted she had led him to me. She said she was also gambling, betting that Seraphina could save us. She was tired of this kind of life too. Thankfully, we won. Vivian was truly clever. If it were me, I probably wouldn't have planned so thoroughly. But why didn't Vivian directly seek out Seraphina herself? For once, I was intelligent. Vivian couldn't look me in the eye, filled with both regret and shame. It turned out she also had selfish motives. This was, after all, a desperate gamble. No one knew if Seraphina could save us, nor if she would help us or ruthlessly eliminate us sprites upon meeting us. Through the tycoon, Vivian pushed me to the front lines. If it succeeded, we would all be saved. If it failed, she could retreat safely. Whether discovered by the chief or killed by Seraphina, I would always be the first to suffer. While she could retreat unscathed, I didn't blame her. Everyone looks out for themselves. But a lingering sadness remained in my heart. To ensure enough daughters were born, men like my father and the other villagers would take turns marrying each other's daughters. The children born would be raised and then sent out to hunt men, maintaining the divine power for Yangshui Lake. In return, they amassed vast wealth, which they squandered in the outside world. For hundreds of years, not a single man felt pity, never once considering letting us girls go. My sisters and I found a picturesque valley, settled there, and lived a truly carefree and tranquil life. Year after year, some grew up, others aged naturally, and some grew tired of the place. More and more left, and those who departed never returned. I never heard any news of them again. Finally, only Hannah and I remained, relying on each other. For me, these victorious days were the best. Epilogue, Seraphina, eternally 16. My geomancy shop remained open all night as usual. Bigfoot arrived with grilled skewers and beer, saying, "Lately, many prominent figures have been dying for no apparent reason, and people are buzzing about it. Some have even discovered that these individuals were people whose appearances hadn't changed for many years. What's more, one of them was over 60, but still looked like he was in his 20s. Yangshui Village has disappeared. Everything related to it should also vanish. That's only fair, right?" I ate a fragrant lamb skewer. "Once you're done eating, let's get to work." "What else is there, Granny? Isn't everything finished?" Bigfoot asked, bewildered, making me feel helpless. "Bigfoot, tell me, are those who gained eternal youth by trampling on other people's lives guilty or not?" "Of course they're guilty, guilty enough to die," Bigfoot replied decisively. "Exactly. Hell won't accept these souls. We must bring them back to Ghost Mountain for processing. But Ghost Mountain is even scarier than hell. It would be better to send them to hell," Bigfoot muttered. "Well, that's their own doing. Granny, you've changed. At least in how you handled Dahlia and the others, you've gone soft. Soft-hearted? Perhaps. There was a time when I also wished to meet a benevolent deity who would save me, free me from Ghost Mountain, but to this day, I'm still waiting. So, let me be that benevolent deity just this once, both to save them and to free myself. Epilogue: Vivian. The chief kept me because I had known the secrets of Yangshui Village since childhood. He deliberately nurtured me to be his eyes and ears in the outside world. I cruelly watched the elders and sisters in the village disappear one by one into Yangshui Lake. From horrifying fear, I gradually became numb. Until I grew to detest this life, I was neither purely good nor purely evil. My pain originated here, not pure enough to be good, not thorough enough to be evil. After Yangshui Village vanished, I lived with the remaining sisters for a while, but ultimately I couldn't let go of the opulent world outside. Once out, it was impossible not to become entangled in human extravagance. That night, after our intimate encounter, the human skin I wore disappeared, and I realized I was originally a rabbit. After countless hardships, I returned to Dahlia's side. But she didn't recognize me, she simply kept me as an ordinary pet. It was then that I understood how precious her contentment and acceptance of a simple life truly were. I wanted to tell her that man, the one who searched for her for 2 years, still had her picture as his phone's wallpaper. It's just that not all destinies have a resolution. I also wanted to tell her that the night I wrote, "Run away," on the table with wine, I truly hoped they would flee, for everyone to save themselves. At that time, I hadn't realized that Seraphina could truly destroy Yangshui Village and save us. In my next life, I only wished to be a pure and righteous human.